Well, welcome everybody. This is Mark Ciszewski. Excited for you guys to join us on another Revizto deep dive. We're going to be doing these every once a month. So if there's anybody that can't make this, we're also recording this so you can share this one. But as you guys know, and those of you guys who have followed Revizto, we have a number of different things that are changing in Revizto. So we like to go through some of those new features, some of the additional things that's going on with Revizto. So we'll be doing a deep dive about once a month. So check out our monthly newsletter to be able to see any updates on this, as well as additional webinars. So a lot of our webinars, this is the most general kind of deep dive of Revizto, but for specific industries or different ones showcasing client workflows, we have our Rev Up series along with a number of those. So if you're not signed up for that Revizto monthly newsletter that showcases all those webinars, it's a great place to identify the specific information that you're looking forward to seeing and going to be a little bit more tailored to exactly what you're looking for. But anyways, I'm going to stick around after this as well to answer any questions. So feel free, if a question pops up, throw it in the chat and I'll be sure to spend some time here, probably after 35 minutes, just to address any additional questions you guys have. So let's just get started off here with Revizto. So here's kind of the agenda for today. For those of you guys that aren't familiar with Revizto, we are an integrated collaboration platform. So Revizto has always had the methodology of being, the biggest fish in the smallest pond. I think there's a lot of different, software companies that try to do everything, and in the reality, we know, what we're good at, and we want to make sure that we are, giving it our all in that specific segment, which is, coordination, collaboration, communication, from field to office, and leave, the project management stuff and some of the other aspects of design to, to the industry's best and the people that actually do that. So you won't see Revizto branching too far outside of our specific vertical, but we want to make sure that we keep improving that process and then provide those integrated links to effortlessly, communicate and collaborate with those platforms that you guys have already invested in. So just Revizto by the numbers. So I won't spend a ton of time on this, but for those of you guys who are completely unaware of who Revizto is, or maybe you've seen our name at trade shows and events and different things, and not really understanding kind of what Revizto is as an organization, we are a global company, and that's something we really pride ourselves on. Is we have a ton of use globally, and it's really cool to see even some of these countries collaborating amongst one another on some of these large scale projects. So again, ICP, you'll see us using this acronym quite a bit. It's Integrated Collaboration Platform, and what we're doing here is, again, we want to stay the biggest fish in the smallest pond, for lack of a better term, and make sure that we're improving this process of coordination, communication, within that before we try to go and segment out into a different vertical. So we got a ton of room for growth and no shortage of ideas of improving this process and redefining how people collaborate. And that's really the focus of Revizto as an organization. So without spending too much time on PowerPoint, let's get kicked off with actually the platform itself. So for those of you guys who are unfamiliar with just Revizto as a whole, we try to make this extremely simple because a lot of our users are untechnical. So obviously there's a big challenge of trying to make a product powerful enough for those people who have spent years in Navisworks or years in Calibri, and yet simple enough for field guys who were afraid to pick up an iPad and not wanting to switch to the digital format a couple of years ago. We want to make it easy enough for them to be able to use this as well. So right up in the gate, you're going to see that Revizto is broken up into 3 segments. So we have 3D, we have our 2D, and we have our issue tracker where all of our issues are stored. So we're not super creative, and yet we try not to make it super complicated here at Revizto. So if we click on our 3D tab, it's going to be all of your 3D geometry that comes in from your design model. So if we click on here, we may see this is coming from Tekla. We can see all the different information with this as well. Whereas if we click on 2D, this is going to be all of your 2D documents. And in this case, we are showcasing BIM 360 and Procore Docs. So again, talking about that, Procore and BIM 360 already do a fantastic job at hosting, PDF drawings. So we didn't want to, recreate the wheel on that. So where your construction documents are living today, we can take that information and we just add more value to that. So one of the common themes you're going to see today is me talking about the XYZ values. So that's one of the key differentiators of how Revizto functions. So if we look at this A100 floor plan PDF, we can see that if we double click on it, we can see this is just a standard vector format PDF, or what appears to be a standard vector format PDF. However, this is going to be the first example of where you're going to see how Revizto makes a standard BIM 360 PDF intelligent. So if I click this little 3D button up here, I'm going to say, you know what, let's check out this, this table over here. Double click, boom, takes me right there. So for those of you guys familiar with the building information modeling process, we know that through design, when we're designing something, when we put something in 2D, it shows up in 3D. When we manipulate and move something in 3D, it affects our 2D construction documents, right? Revizto functions the same way. So traditionally, our industry has leveraged the personal document format because it's easy, light, and easy to use, right? It's a good transition from taking something that was once a paper document to an easy, light, ability to move and mark that up. So with Revizto, however, we add back that intelligence. So in the background, we have the XYZ coordinates. Obviously, this sheet coming from Revit or coming from Tekla or coming from CAD MEP or Civil 3D is going to have intelligent data behind it, right? We understand what the elevation of this specific plan is, and I can click anywhere on this plan and say, you know what, let's come over to the storage room. Double click, boom, let's come back, and you know what, we want to come over to this stairwell. So this is a really nice way to navigate if you are familiar with the sheets. And what you'll notice is if I press our map key over here, or M on my keyboard, it's going to show us that we are now located in that stairwell. It's also going to show us that specific elevation as well. So this is kind of a good segment into kind of how we navigate. There's several different ways to navigate inside of Revizto. My favorite is going to be the map or the M key, which shows you, a cut plane, shows you your Revit room names. If I select 2D, it's going to recut it. And then I can say, you know what, let's come over to lounge, 223, double click, takes me to that area. And now if I come back here and I click the map again, or the M key on your keyboard, you're going to notice that our elevation is now changed. Instead of being at 4 foot, I am here at 17 feet. So really unique way to be able to navigate and be able to see kind of the entire office space as a whole, and gives us a good way to jump back and forth. You can do the exact same thing from any of your intelligent plans as well. So as I've shown you, if we jump in here, all these plans have intelligent. So even if we come to the reflective ceiling plan over here, this RCP, we can double click and bam, we have this located on top of our 3D. So this is all based off of the XYZ coordinates. So some of you guys might be thinking, well, what happens if I have a dumb detail or something that doesn't have, intelligent data? It came from AutoCAD, somebody sent me a PDF, I don't have access to the model. Well, the beauty of Revizto is we can actually line up and make these sheets intelligent. So we can click 2 different points on the plan, we can select its proper elevation, and we can lock it in. And the beauty of that is we only have to do that one time, because when we replace that plan with our updated plan as the documents get re-provided to us, it's going to remember that intelligent information, and it's going to realign that specific sheet to the XYZ coordinates you originally set up. So this is one of the favorite aspects, is being able to detach and attach that sheet. We can actually pull through some of the structural model or whatever else we would like to pull through this RCP in this example, and get an idea of where things are laying out. But this is all done through the work you guys have already provided, or your design teams have already provided through the building information modeling process. So another really cool aspect is, if I'm brand new to Revizto and I'm caught up here and I don't know where I'm at, or I want to clear everything out and kind of start back to kind of the go back to home button. If for those of you guys familiar with Monopoly, our little home button here is awesome. We click the house and bam, we cleared everything back out and we're back to our standard view. So the next thing that we are going to jump into today is going to be the issue tracker. And that's where we're going to spend a lot of our time, is how we're tracking issues, and then how do we report on those specific issues. So issue tracker is going to be the third portion that we haven't really touched on today. The powerful aspect of the issue tracker is it's going to be a lot like a Facebook or LinkedIn text message or Slack style feed. So again, we're going to have a list of different issues. We can see David Ray just jumped on into this project. So it's going to also show you who's actively in this project working. But we can come to any of these issues. Looks like Jesse has marked some duct damage here, and I'll click on that. So I've highlighted duct damage in blue, and we can see that that was identified on May 1st, 2020 by Pat Lantry at 8:15 a.m. A couple minutes later, it looks like Pat added a photograph and he was showing where that duct damage is. Looks like not really a duct to me, but a good photo example. And then we can see kind of the statuses to that. So I might chime in here and say, hey Pat, that's not a duct, and we can add in that comment as well. So you can see, at 12:13 today, I added that comment to Pat's chat. So we can break this out even further. We can see it's actually assigned to Jesse. So if I click this I button, we can get additional information. So this issue is in progress right now. This stamp that we used to identify it was DD, and in this case, it stands for duct damage. It doesn't have a deadline yet. So maybe I want to go in there and make sure Jesse understands that we need to get that fixed by the 15th. I'll add that on there. And every single thing I do is going to be logged in this, in the life cycle of this specific issue. So even the fact that I changed this this deadline from none to the 15th is documented within there. So we can add additional watchers or different people to this as well. And then we can also tag this if we wanted to tag it something. And these tags are all custom to your specific project. Looks like Pat's from Boston, so we'll tag it Boston here. So we can later filter by a Boston tag and identify just issues that are tagged Boston. So that is kind of how we communicate with this. We also have the ability to add 360 photos, docs. So if we want to link it to a BIM 360 doc or a box doc or a Procore doc, we can link that to that. So if there was anything from equipment schedules to additional, information or RFIs or submittals or things of that nature, we can add those all into, into this doc or into this lifestyle of the issue. Next, we're going to go through kind of how to create an issue, and there's several different ways we can do that. So my favorite, and again, I'm going to unsection this by clicking on our sectioning box, is really to, when we identify a specific issue, is to use our stamps button. Stamps are going to be predefined by the project, so they're going to be common issues that have already, that we're identifying, whether it's on a daily basis or a weekly basis. These are issues that come up all the time. Things like modeling issues or ducts coming through the ceiling or ducts running into our structural or things of that nature. Looks like up here we actually have some ducts, so I'm going to actually use a real world example here, and we can come into our stamp button right here. And for those of you guys familiar with, with some of the punch listing platforms where you use a 2D stamp to identify something in 2D, Revizto functions the exact same way. We can identify those 2D stamps, but because of the nature of how Revizto works, whether you do it in 2D or 3D, just like you do, just like a standard building information modeling platform, Revizto is going to do it in both. So let me show you a quick example of that. So we'll come in here and say, hey, you know what? This is an HVAC issue. We got some, in this case, we'll just use GK Mechanical, and I'll add this stamp here. So GK Mechanical, the stamp abbreviation is DFG. So when anybody sees a DFG, they know it's a GK Mechanical issue in this example. These are all custom, right? Even the colors are custom inside of Revizto. So all these orange stamps are HVAC punch list items in this case. And it looks like in this model, it's correlated to even the color of the ducts, through our color appearance profiler. So we'll show those issues here. We can see that DFG, and then we can start to add in additional information with this. So let's just edit this markup. We can come in and actually mark up specifically, hey, it looks like, here's where it's hitting this duct. We can call it out and make additional markups just like we would on any other screenshot. But the biggest difference between this and your standard screenshot is that this is going to be intelligent. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time marking this up, but I will add that stamp in there and actually assign it to Bob the Builder in this case. And we can start to type in specifically any additional notes we need to add. Please fix now. And we're going to start to communicate and chat with Bob the Builder in this example. So again, this may look like a standard screenshot. However, inside of Revizto, if we click 3D, it now becomes dynamic. So we can spin around, we can see exactly how it's hitting or what it's hitting in this specific case. We can come to 2D, and now we can see that specific issue inside of the 2D. So here's DFG. We can see that in the 2D specific plan, as well as any other plan this may be reflected on. So here's our piping level. We can double click on our piping level and we can see that, yep, it's identified right by that stairwell, and here's where it falls in 2D. So this workflow is exactly the same in a 2D format. So most of you guys, when using stamps, are familiar with this 2D workflow. Well, it's really no different inside of Revizto. So we already have all of our 2D documents housed within 2D. Let's just say we identified that on our 2D plan and we wanted to mark that. We come up, we grab that. In this case, I'll use something different. We'll use our pipe punch list in this example, and we'll say, I don't know, pipe damage, just to change it up a bit. So PD is our stamp. It's already assigned to the specific people. We can change that if we want. Greg Keller. And now I can start to chat about this stamp. So just like it works in 2D, it works in 3D. So we've identified this issue, in this case in 2D. One of the things you guys will note is that any issue created in 2D will have a 2D plane here. So it's a little square box where if I reset this filter, we'll see that 3D issues are going to be created with a 3D cube. So we can see in what situation somebody created the issue. Did they identify it in a 2D format or in a 3D format? So in this case, we identified this one in a 2D format, where the GK mechanical one we identified in a 3D format. And we're just going to jump in here and say, you know what? I really don't get a lot of context from this level 2 piping plan. I want to take a look in 3D. Well, we click 3D, and here's that PD issue identified in the 3D model as well. So extremely powerful to allow somebody who is used to marking things up in 2D to identify things in a 2D format. And if somebody like a VDC team member is used to spending all their time in 3D, we can identify that in 3D as well. So a lot of you guys may kind of wonder about the workflow here. So once we're identifying issues, Revizto is a coordination platform. So we're actually not fixing this issue, similar to Navisworks or Celebri or some of these other coordination platforms out in the market. We're not actually fixing the platform within, or fixing this specific piping issue. We have to go back to Revit or Academy P or whatever the platform is that this issue needs to be fixed in. So we're going to walk through kind of what I call the bucket workflow. It's really a game of getting specific issues assigned to you out of your bucket and into the BIM manager's bucket or the project manager's bucket, so they can verify that it's been done correctly, it's to project standards, close it out, and we can move on. So ultimately, our project goal is to eliminate these 1,130 issues as a team. We want that to go to 0. And we want those all to move to our closed issue bucket. So all these different issues have specific statuses. So right now, we're just showing issues that are currently open. Now, if I shut these off and just said, let's see our closed issues, we can see we actually closed over 1,000 issues so far. But our goal is to get those all closed before we issue our construction documents and finish the project. So we'll jump back to this scenario. And I'm going to open up Revit up on my other monitor, and I'll be able to move this over to show you kind of the design workflow. So if I'm a specific person on here, I'm going to create what we call a preset. So a preset is going to be defined by any custom set of parameters, but it allows you just to come in here and select my preset, and it's going to show you just issues that are meeting those parameters. So first step to kind of setting up a custom preset here is selecting, what we want to see here. So in my case, I want to see only issues that are assigned to Mark Ciszewski, and I only want to see issues that have a status of open in progress. If I move it to solved, I'm not worried about it because my manager is going to be addressing those issues. So I'm going to pretend to be the designer here, and we are going to kind of walk through this workflow. So here, as I'm sitting here looking at these specific issues, here are the ones that have been assigned to me. So it looks like we have a door repair that's been identified here. That was identified by Travis. We have a move window. So we can see a number of these different issues. So in this case, I'm just going to create a new issue just to show you one more time. We'll grab here. We'll say we got something in design review. We're going to tag this one architect. In this case, you know what? Let's just we'll try out this. I'm going to identify, hide this door. And we're just going to create a quick section here. You know what, that is way too large. So I'm going to resection this. There we go. So I've identified this specific door in question, and we're going to come in here and we're going to add in that new stamp. So come back to architect, add that architect stamp in there. And now we can start to collaborate on this again. So once this issue has been identified, it's going to jump into our total issue filter. So architect actually assigned that to Daniel Buckner. But so for this specific issue, in this case, I'm actually just going to move this away from Daniel and put this back to me. So we're just going to identify that as one of my issues, and I'm going to have to fix this issue, back inside of Revit. As the architect in this example. So my goal, and again, let's just come back. I didn't actually create a preset. I probably should have, but we're just going to say, you know what? I only want to see issues that are in progress and open. We'll come to assignee, only see ones by me. So I have 49 issues I need to get rid of. So let me move Revit over to my primary monitor here. So we can see our model up here, and I'm going to try to fix this door. So as a designer, I'm going to come into Revizto. We're going to select issue tracker. I can double click on this specific door issue, and you can see that it's actually going to pull me in here, and actually looks like I do not have my architectural model on, which is a really good example because I do have my structural on. So what that means is that even though what you're seeing, so if I'm the architect, obviously I'm typically going to have that architectural model on. But what's interesting about this, and this goes to one of the Revizto strengths, is the switch pack feature is not functioned by element ID. It's functioned by the XYZ coordinate and what lives within that defined box. So because I do not have the architectural model on in this case, it's just going to show me whatever lives within that defined XYZ coordinate box. So obviously within Revizto in this example, I have my architectural model on, and that's why we're seeing that. Whereas if in Revit, I only have my structural on, and that's why we're only seeing the structural model. So a really good example. So let's just pretend here that we had that 2D or the architectural model on. I make that adjustment, and after I fix that adjustment inside of Revit, I'm updating my RVT file, sometimes reissuing an NWC, and I'm going to move this to in progress. So I'm working on it, and as I fix this issue, I move it to solved. So I want you guys to look at this number up here, 49 issues. Watch what happens when I move it to solved. So when I move it to solved, I jump down to 48 issues, right? Because that issue is now out of my quote unquote bucket. That issue now falls into somebody else's bucket, which is going to usually be the BIM manager on that project. So let's do this with a couple other issues. I'm going to pretend that I'm going through the process. I fix this issue as well inside of Revit. So again, if we want to see this via the switchback, click issue tracker, double click on this issue, and it's going to identify that issue. And again, it's going to show us everything but the architectural model in this case. So I'm going to move this to solved as we fix this, and now I'm down to 47. I think you guys kind of get the idea. So my goal as a designer in this specific case is to get rid of all 47 issues. Now I can prioritize this by date. I can prioritize it by specific deadline. I can prioritize it by the actual priority of the issue if a priority is given. So there's a number of different ways I can kind of prioritize my bucket of issues. Now we're gonna switch hats here. I'm gonna become the BIM manager. So the BIM manager is going to actually set up a custom preset or bucket of issues. And those are going to be by, in this case, we're going to say, we're not worried about the assignee, but we are worried about the specific status. And I'm only worried about issues that are solved. So as the BIM manager, you can see that here's that architectural issue that I added to that issue that I just solved, because it's now falling in this bucket because my custom set of parameters are filtered by solved issues. So my goal as the BIM manager is to now, double click on this issue. I'm going to probably check back at the original source of truth, which is Revit. So we're going to double click on this. It's going to switch me back to this. And in this example, the BIM manager is going to want to have all of the models turned on. We're going to identify that this issue's been highlighted inside of or has been done correctly, and if that is done to to the standard of the project, we're going to move this to close. So watch again, 223, move it to close, we're down to 222. So as a BIM manager, my goal is to get this issue to 0. Let's just pretend Brett Settles, he's really been slacking here. He's actually on vacation this week, so we're going to give him a hard time, and we're going to say, you know what, Brett, this issue that Daniel and you have been working on here is not up to par, and we want this, we need to take another look at this. So we're gonna say, hey, you know what, please do a better job. And instead of moving it to closed here, I'm gonna move it back to in progress. You're gonna notice it went down, it went from 222 to 221. And that's exactly right, because it is out of the ball is not in my court any longer. It's back in Brett's court. So Brett's issues, if he had 50 issues, now he has 51 issues in his specific preset. So there's this checks and balances, and it works its way through this, and there's always a paper trail and documentation of what happened at what point in time. So that kind of gives you a kind of an idea of what I call the bucket workflow and how we jump between between the relationship between the design team and the MEP team and the general contractor on your project. So lastly here, before we kind of wrap up here and answer some questions, I wanted to show one of the newer features inside of 4.0, and then we will jump into reporting. So one of the cool things that we just added in our last release, if you guys have downloaded that, is our sectioning tool has got a facelift here. So our sectioning tool, we've always had really good feedback on how this works. We can select this and just grab it. But one of the most annoying things in here is if I wanted to bring this back face in, I had to come around and I'd say, okay, let's move this over. Actually, it would typically be like this. So if I want to do the backside here, I'm going to spin around and then I'm going to say, you know what, let's slide that in. Oh, you know what, let's come back over here. Whoops. And we're going to slide this in, right? So this, if we press Control on our keyboard or check this box, now I can just grab that back face from this side without doing any spinning. Uncheck, I want to grab this side. You know what, let's minimal or make that a little smaller on this side. Awesome. So it just really eliminates the amount of movement that you have to have within Revizto by just checking that box, dragging that back face, uncheck it, and we can make that to the size we want. So that's a really cool feature that our development team came up with and pushed out in our last release, and will be part of the product in the future. So lastly, we're going to jump into reporting. So all of these issues that we're creating, we have over 2,000 issues in this project and over 1,100 open currently. So if we jump into this right here, this is going to be our reporting button. So the whole idea around reporting these issues, right? We can identify these issues, but if we can't actually properly track, identify, and communicate, changes in a timely fashion, identifying all these issues are, really invaluable. So Revizto's workspace is how we do that, and through dashboards and reporting. So the first thing that we've done here is set up dashboards. So dashboards can either be shared with your team, or they can be private and just used for personal uses in this case. So each of these things in different colors that you're seeing here, webinar dashboard, these are all different dashboards, and they're a series of graphs. So dashboard is kind of the top layer of the folder structure, and then we'll have different charts and reports within those specific dashboards. So if I wanted to create a new dashboard, I could call it, webinar 2.0 dashboard just by clicking right here, or I can edit. So what I'm seeing here is all dashboards that I have access or have been shared with me. So let's pick on Brett again, and we're going to come in here and we can see a number of different charts. Looks like Brett's kind of slacking here. He only has one. So we're going to come in here and we're going to add to his specific graph. And we're going to name this webinar May test. And we're going to come in here and select, we'll do it by, let's see here, we'll do it by stamp abbreviation today. And we're going to select, you know what, we're going to actually do it by assignee. So we're going to do it by assignee. So we can see that here's my webinar test, all my issues pushed out by assignee, but this is way too busy. So we need to start to really kind of boil down these issues to something that's more valuable, because we don't need to see this amount of people on the graph by just seeing where they fit. But we're going to jump in here. We're going to start to add in some conditions. So in this case, we're going to say, let's just do it by tag. So I know we used that Boston tag earlier, giving Pat Lantry a hard time. So we're going to come in here and say include any of, and I'm going to say, let's find that Boston, add Boston tag in there. And it looks like we only have two. So Bob the Builder is the one we added, and Jesse. So we'll jump back in here and we'll actually just pick out another tag here. We're going to say, let's find a good one here. We're going to use GK Mechanical, and we're also going to use Hester, and we're also going to use Furniture. So as you can see, this is very dynamic. So if I said, you know what, GK Mechanical, that's making this thing too busy. I just want to see Hester and Furniture. Boom, we can see that. You know what, let's add just a couple other ones in there. We got Jameson, we got level 102, and we can start to see and manipulate this graph in real time and get this data that we're looking to get. We can add in additional conditions and put timeframes, put dates. I mean, you name it. We can really take a project with thousands and thousands of issues and boil it down to 15, as you just saw. So in this case, if we said, you know what is Reese's? How many issues does Reese have? We can click on that and we can actually hide Reese from that or add him back to that. We can also come into Jesse and see where his quadrant is, or where is Brett over here. It looks like he has 4 specific issues. So it's really powerful and very dynamic how you can kind of see the percent of people. So Nathan Bennett in this case has 10 issues, which comes out to 35.71% of our total project issues. And maybe we just want to eliminate this tag Jameson in there, and we want to add a different tag. And so it's just very powerful in how we can kind of manipulate and add owner tag in there. And now we can come back and see, if Brett's issues are now 10%. Maybe we want to eliminate Brett from that equation. So it's just very powerful and kind of fun to play around with and get kind of that information to make real world business decisions out of information that's usually, tied up in a number of screenshots, emails, text messages, communications, etc. So in this case, we'll save this. And now this graph is going to be added to Brett's dashboard. So any point in time, I can jump in here and we know that we're going to get live, real-time, up-to-date information because Revizto is live in real time. So the next cool thing about this is maybe, we said this is really, really valuable for our project team, and we need them we want to send this over to them right now. So we can send that over as a PDF or an Excel, so we can push that into platforms like Power BI. We can include our company logo, and then we can just add in a bunch of different names. It's going to pre-populate a lot of the people that are in our project team already, or we can just copy and paste their names into that. The other thing we can do is say, you know what, every Monday morning, this would be great. So let's send that over. Let's do it each week, and let's just do it Monday at 6 a.m. And maybe Friday. I know a lot of our team likes to work late on Friday, so 4 p.m. before they leave the office, we're going to shoot that over to them as well. So it gives them kind of an up-to-date, up-to-date graph and something to think about over the weekend. So the possibilities of how we do this is really limitless. And the ability to do this really kind of takes the creation of data and Excel reports and charts, and it's really something that you can kind of set it and forget it, and manipulate these different charts and graphs as the project progresses through, and there's different needs for that. So that is a kind of a quick overview of how dashboards work, and from a visual format, they're absolutely fantastic. So reports are going to be more typical to your standard, not non-pretty, graphical representation, but they have a lot more granular ability, and this is going to be a lot more similar to probably what your teams are getting. So if we come in here, we can say add a new report, or we can just see our current reports that we have on here. Jump in here, we name the report, we can select the type of format we want somebody to get it, what kind of timetable do they want it in, the specific dates, and then again, we start to add conditions. So let's do it by assignee, is any, we'll say is none of, and we want to disclude, we're going to disclude Brett and David Ray and Greg Keller, and we want everything else to be put in there. And then let's add a couple conditions. We only want to see issues that are based off of a specific sheet or a specific RFI status. I mean, you name it, there's a bunch of different things we can do with this. So in this case, I'll do stamp abbreviation. I'll say is any, and I'll say I want DIM. We're going to add OB, SH, WD, and boom. So I then can select the delivery date, and it's going to send this out, or we can choose to share it today. And that is how our reporting works as well. So those of you guys that aren't familiar with kind of the Revizto process, if you guys are brand new to Revizto, we do what's called a 60-day POC. One of the cool things about this is we actually have a document filled out specific to each vertical. This is one of the progressions that we've kind of gone through and improved over the last several months based on feedback and a number of other factors. So we have a list. If you're a mechanical contractor, we have a list of here is how our mechanical contractors are using this in a global level. We kind of boiled it down to the top 20 different workflows and features and things that they're adding value to their company with. If you're on the design side, we have a design one that's going to go through how those organizations are utilizing this from a design side. If you're a GC, it's going to list a bunch of the workflows. So the cool thing about this is you get this quote unquote shopping list or a list of ways other companies globally are utilizing this. So in your POC, you may check, we want to take point clouds into Revizto. We want to be able to integrate clash detection with Revizto. We want to be able to use the stamps with our field team. You check the boxes that you find of interest, and then you can add in or write in anything else that is important to you. And then we have an industry specific person for each vertical, oftentimes multiple people per vertical in each region that will work hand in hand with you. So Sean Hester, in this case, came from a large GC here in the United States. He works with our large general contractors and works hand in hand. And currently right now, there is no cost to leveraging him as a customer. So certainly a huge benefit to be able to run through that.